I grew up on static. Before Netflix, before streaming, before skip intro, you could lose whole nights flipping through dead channels, snow, buzzing, an occasional flash of something that shouldn't have been there. My dad used to call it the space between stations. Said if you listen long enough, you could hear the world breathing. I never believed him. Not until last week. My apartment is old, built sometime in the late 70s, and the landlord still has the original coaxial cable ports in every room. I found a dusty CRT TV in the basement laundry area, sitting beside a stack of broken microwaves. For fun, I dragged it upstairs, hooked it to the wall socket, and started scanning. Most of it was noise. Then, somewhere between channel 18 and 20, the static froze. The sound sharpened, not the usual hiss, but something rhythmic. Like breathing through a microphone. Then the screen flickered. White text scrolled across a black background. Channel 19 live feed. A man appeared, sitting at a wooden desk, wearing headphones, reading from a sheet of paper. The lighting was dim, sickly yellow, like a basement. He spoke in a slow monotone. Dylan wrote, "Wish I'd told Mom I loved her before the crash." He paused, blinked once, then continued. Marissa Lane commented, "I keep dreaming about the dark water. I think it's calling me back." The feed glitched. His face blurred for a second, then realigned. My stomach tightened. Those names sounded familiar. Dylan was in my graduating class. Marissa Lane had worked at the grocery store 2 blocks from here. Both had died last month. I told myself it had to be coincidence, some kind of weird archive channel, maybe a memorial. But then the man stopped reading, looked up from his paper, and stared directly into the camera. "Next week's comments are almost ready," he said softly. "Let's welcome a new contributor." He smiled. The screen flickered to static again, then to a list of usernames scrolling too fast to read. And at the very bottom, one name froze clear enough for me to see. @mark.b pending submission. That's my handle. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't written any comments. But when I turned the dial back to 18, the static whispered a crackle that sounded almost like words. "Write something, Mark." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face, the one from channel 19, leaning forward, his smile just barely too patient. I kept replaying that moment in my head. @mark.b pending submission. At first, I thought maybe I'd misread it. Maybe it wasn't my handle. But the next morning, when I turned the TV back on just to prove to myself it was nothing, channel 19 was gone. Nothing but static. I almost laughed. Probably some pirate signal, I told myself. Analog weirdness. Old equipment picking up random frequencies. But that afternoon, while making coffee, my phone buzzed. A YouTube notification. Channel 19 has uploaded a new video. I froze. I didn't remember subscribing to anything called that. I opened the link anyway. The video was titled Submissions, March 21st, 25. Black background. White text. No thumbnail. It started the same way as the TV feed, that same man, same desk, same yellow light. But this time, he wasn't reading. He was just staring at the camera, listening, like he was waiting for someone to speak on the other end. Then, from off-screen, a printer began whirring. He reached out, pulled a single page, and read. Mark B. wrote, "Sometimes I think about what it would feel like to fall from my balcony. Not die, just fall." I dropped my phone. I'd written that sentence once in a private note on my laptop. Not online. Not shared. Not saved to the cloud. The man kept reading. Line by line. Everything I'd ever typed in that note. My pulse was hammering so loud I could barely breathe. I closed the app, deleted the notification, factory reset my phone, and even unplugged the router. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, nothing. I left the TV unplugged too. But later that night, while brushing my teeth, I heard the faint buzz of static coming from the living room. I swear I'd left the TV unplugged. When I walked in, the screen was black but not off. A single white line of text blinked across the bottom. Comment received. Scheduled for broadcast. I unplugged it again. Hard. The static cut off. But when I turned around, my laptop screen had turned itself on. The cursor was moving. Typing. At Mark.B has joined Channel 19. I stopped telling people about it. Because what was I supposed to say? Hey, remember analog television? Mine talks back now. No one would believe that, and honestly, I wasn't sure I did either. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, maybe too much caffeine. So I decided to prove it wasn't real. The next morning, I borrowed my neighbor's old flat screen, one of those newer models with no antenna port. Pure HDMI. No way to pick up analog channels. I set it up in the living room, turned it on, and flipped through every input. Nothing. Just black. But then, right before I turned it off, a faint static hum came through the speakers. Not loud. Just a whisper under the noise. Then a voice. Mine. You said you wouldn't watch again. I froze. The remote slipped out of my hand. The voice was flat, slightly distorted like a recording played through old tape, but it was me. I stepped closer. The screen stayed black, but I could hear breathing. Slow, deliberate, like someone standing inches away from the microphone. We don't like when you use other screens, it said. Channel 19 is everywhere now. I pulled the plug from the wall, heart hammering. No power. Still, the black glass of the screen reflected the room perfectly. And behind me, in that reflection, I saw the old TV. The one I'd unplugged days ago. It was on. I ran. Down the stairs, out the door, into the freezing rain. My phone buzzed in my pocket again and again. When I finally looked, every notification said the same thing. Live now, Channel 19 Echo Broadcast. I didn't click. I couldn't. But the thumbnail already autoplayed a preview. It was a live feed of my apartment. My living room. The chair I'd just been sitting in. And my reflection in the TV screen, still visible, still moving. Only I wasn't there anymore. Not in real life. Not on camera. But the reflection kept pacing. Kept breathing. Then it stopped. Turned. Looked straight into the lens. Mark B left the broadcast, it said. The stream ended. The next day, when I finally worked up the nerve to go back upstairs, the old TV was gone. Not stolen, just gone. But on my wall, right where it had been, someone had written in faint blocky white stencil. Channel 19 live feed. And below that, in smaller letters, almost like an afterthought. Next viewer pending. After the broadcast, I stopped watching TV. For a week, I tried to pretend it was over. I didn't touch my phone except for work. I unplugged everything: router, smart speaker, even the microwave, just in case. But something about silence is cruel. When everything stops buzzing, you start to notice the small sounds that never go away: electricity humming in the walls, the faint tick under the fridge, the whisper you tell yourself is plumbing. I started to hear it again. A low static hiss, coming from nowhere in particular. Not loud, just present. Constant. It followed me from room to room. At first, I thought I was losing it. So I tried to make it rational. I wanted to find where it came from. I bought a radio frequency scanner, the kind ham radio guys use, and swept through the local bands one night. Most of it was white noise, bursts of CB chatter, police codes, until I hit 87.9 MHz. Right at the bottom of the dial. The speaker crackled. Then unmistakably, the hum shifted into rhythm. Breathing. And a voice. Flat, close, like someone whispering directly into the mic. Mark B, Channel 19 appreciates your curiosity. My hand slipped. I dropped the scanner. When I picked it back up, the signal was gone, replaced by static. I scanned again. Nothing. But I'd seen it flash across the screen for a moment, a text ID burned into the LCD. CH19 local. I googled it. No results. Not a single reference. That night, I called an old friend Aaron, who works tech support for a local TV affiliate. He laughed when I told him about Channel 19. Said no one's broadcast on analog in the Seattle area for years. But when I gave him the frequency, he got quiet. Really quiet. That's not even in use, he said. 87.9's below the FM spectrum. It's like test bandwidth. Old emergency broadcast shit. I heard him typing, his breathing uneven. Okay, that's weird. There's something pinging from that frequency right now. Not digital analog carrier. Unregistered. Low power. Looks like it's coming from. He stopped mid-sentence. Silence. Aaron? Mark, you said your building's from the 70s, right? Yeah. Why? Check your lease. Who owns it? I found the paperwork while he was still on the line. Management Company, 19th Street Holdings LLC. The logo, a white number 19 inside a black square. Aaron whispered, almost to himself. That's not a management company. That's an FCC ghost shell. The kind they used for old test feeds. Before I could ask anything, the call dropped. Dead air. And then my phone speaker popped, that same static hiss, bleeding through even though the call had ended. A voice cut in, so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. You're already broadcasting. I shut the phone off, pulled the SIM card out, and left it on the balcony overnight. But when I came back the next morning, the screen was cracked from the inside. And scrawled across the fogged glass, written somehow in condensation, were the words: Channel 19, feed stable. Next comment, April 2nd, 25. Tomorrow. April 2nd came faster than I thought it would. It's strange how time folds in on itself when you're waiting for something you don't understand. You tell yourself you'll ignore it, but your mind keeps counting anyway. I didn't go to work that day. Didn't leave my apartment. Every noise felt amplified, the hum of the fridge, the creak of pipes, the faint electrical buzz in the walls. By 11:45 p.m., I had convinced myself it was all an elaborate prank, maybe Aaron, maybe some hacker with too much time. I told myself that even if something did happen, I wouldn't check. I'd turn everything off, sit in silence, and wait it out. But silence has a gravity. It pulls you toward the sound you fear most. At 11:57, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stayed dim. I checked the outlets, no surge, no power loss. Just dim light. And then, from the corner of the room, my old radio frequency scanner crackled to life. I hadn't touched it since that night with Aaron. The LCD flickered. 87.9 megahertz. And below it, new text began to scroll, one slow word at a time. Now broadcasting, Mark B. I felt my chest tighten. The air seemed heavier. I picked up the scanner, turned the volume knob all the way down, but I could still hear it. A low hum, like static layered with breathing. Then a faint voice. Mine. Welcome to Channel 19. I dropped the scanner. It clattered across the floor, but the hum didn't stop. It spread through the fridge motor, through the vents, through the faint ringing in my own ears. The sound wasn't coming from a speaker anymore. It was inside the walls. I pulled the main fuse switch, cutting power to the entire apartment. Darkness swallowed everything. No hum. No light. Just my heartbeat. And then my phone lit up, battery only. A notification pulsed on the lock screen. Live now, Channel 19, final submission. I didn't touch it. Didn't breathe. The screen brightened, unprompted, and showed the live feed. The camera angle was my apartment. Same room. Same chair. But I wasn't holding the phone. I was in the feed, sitting motionless, staring straight ahead. The light from the phone reflected faintly on my face. I looked around, the room empty. But the version of me in the feed blinked. Slowly. Deliberately. Then, on the live chat, words began to flood in. He's reading this now. Ask him if he can hear us. Look at the delay, he's catching up. Pending submission completed. I threw the phone against the wall. The feed kept going. My cracked screen showed a new line of text appearing across the bottom. Feed localized. Signal source confirmed. The image zoomed in, not on my face, but on the wall behind me. The plaster. The faint outline of a coaxial port I'd never noticed before. The old analog TV connector, sealed over with paint. The feed focused on it. Zoomed closer. The faint hiss of static returned, deeper now, resonating like a pulse. Every building has one, my own voice whispered from the phone's shattered speaker. Every home has a frequency. Once you watch, you tune in. I left that night. Didn't pack. Didn't turn anything off. Just walked out and never looked back. But the next morning, when I stopped at a diner 2 towns over, the TV behind the counter flickered mid-news broadcast. The screen went black for half a second, then filled with text. Channel 19, feed stable. Next viewer, April 3rd. The waitress muttered something about signal interference and changed the channel. But for a split second before she did, I saw it. My apartment. My empty chair. The faint glow of a phone screen on the table. And my reflection moving in the black glass, smiling.
I didn't plan to make this recording. I didn't plan to get involved at all. My name is Rachel Morgan, and I run a small independent podcast called Signals. We do stories about lost media, unexplained transmissions, dead stations, the kind of stuff people scroll past at 3 a.m. but can't stop thinking about afterward. 2 weeks ago, a listener sent me a file labeled ch19_capture.mov. No context. No sender info. Just a 30-second clip of a man sitting in an apartment, staring into a camera. No movement. No audio. But at the end, the image distorted and a voice, almost inaudible, whispered, "Rachel will find us next." At first, I thought it was a prank. Happens all the time. But when I ran the file through metadata tools, I found something off. The creation date wasn't current. It was from next week. I reached out to one of my contacts, an FCC tech who helps us trace abandoned signal IDs. He told me the file name looked like something from an old emergency broadcast uplink. Low frequency. Analog ID prefix. CH19 local. I told him about the rumors the so-called Channel 19 ghost signal people claimed to find on analog sets. He laughed at first, but when I sent him the file, he called me back 30 minutes later. He sounded out of breath. "Rachel, it's not a broadcast," he said. "It's a return feed." That phrase haunted me. Return feed, a signal that doesn't transmit content to viewers, but collects it from them. I asked how that was even possible. He said if someone patched a feedback loop through old coaxial infrastructure, those dead emergency alert lines from the 70s, they could, in theory, ping every connected household and record what the line sees. The scary part, he said, is that it wouldn't even need permission. Just a power source. The infrastructure's still in the walls. Then he paused. "Rachel, where did you say you were calling from?" I told him my address. Silence. Then he hung up. When he hung up, I didn't move. I just sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the deadline. No dial tone. Just a faint hum, low and steady, like breathing through static. At first I thought it was feedback. Then I realized it wasn't coming from the phone. It was coming from the wall. I pressed my palm against the plaster beside my desk. It vibrated faintly, rhythmically, like something mechanical behind it. I'd lived in this apartment for 3 years. I'd never heard it before. That night, I unplugged the router, the lamp, everything. Still the sound. A pulse. 5 beats, pause, 5 beats again. Almost like Morse. I couldn't sleep, so I did what journalists always do. I started digging. The building's blueprints were public. Built 1978. And sure enough, under electrical, there it was, local broadcast interface 19A listed as obsolete, but still connected to the main grid. I followed the wiring diagram and traced it to my apartment number. Unit 4B. Mine, the note said. Relay receiver / return signal point. No one had ever removed it. I went to the landlord the next morning. He looked surprised, not at the question, but at my apartment number. You're in 4B? He scratched his jaw. We had a guy there before you years ago. Tech guy. Kept saying he could hear the walls hum. Said it was the old alert line still active. We replaced the outlets after he left, but guess we missed something. I asked what happened to him. The landlord frowned. He moved out. At least, I think he did. Then he paused. Wait, what's your name again? That night, I heard it louder. The hum wasn't just behind the wall now, it was through the apartment, like the whole place was wired with it. Every time I spoke out loud, it got slightly stronger, like it was reacting. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text only. Turn on channel 19. I didn't have cable. I didn't even own a TV. But the message kept repeating every few minutes until I unplugged the phone completely. And still, from somewhere deep in the wall, a faint click. Like a switch being flipped. The next morning, the hum was gone. For the first time in days, the apartment was silent. I almost cried from relief. Until I checked my computer. A new folder sat on my desktop. I hadn't created it. Title, ch19_recordings. Inside, 10 files, each labeled with a date. The oldest was from 2 weeks ago. The newest was today. I clicked the first. It was my apartment, my desk, shot from the exact angle I was sitting in now. The footage showed me typing, pausing, listening. Then, at the end, I looked straight at the camera. The file ended, and immediately, a new one started, time-stamped for next week. It was the same angle again. Same room. Only this time, I wasn't typing. I was sitting completely still, staring at the lens. Mouth slightly open. Eyes unfocused. And faintly, behind the digital hiss, a voice whispered, "Rachel found us." I closed the laptop, packed a bag, and left the apartment. I never went back. But sometimes, when I'm editing in the studio, I hear that same hum through my headphones, 5 beats, pause, 5 beats again. And every time I post a new episode of Signals, someone comments the same 3 words under it within minutes. We're still watching.